A man in a gray hoodie sits down at the worst table in the diner. The one by the kitchen door. The one that smells like dish soap and fried oil, and the particular exhaustion of a place that has been open since 5 in the morning. He does not ask for a better table. He does not flag anyone down. He picks up the laminated menu and reads it the way a person reads a menu when they have not eaten in a while, slowly, from top to bottom, like every option matters. Nobody recognizes him. Nobody looks twice. That is exactly how he wanted it. There is a diner in Portland, Oregon called Rosie's Counter. It sits on the corner of Southeast Burnside and 28th, in a neighborhood that used to be working class and is now caught somewhere between what it was and what developers want it to become. The booths are original, red vinyl, cracked in the same places they have been cracked for 30 years. The counter seats 12. The pie case by the register holds whatever Rosie's granddaughter baked that morning, which is always something, because she has been baking since she was 11 and has never stopped. Breakfast runs $9.50 for 2 eggs, toast, and coffee. The lunch special, a grilled sandwich and cup of soup, is $11. The most expensive item on the menu is the open-faced turkey plate at $14.75, and it comes with mashed potatoes and green beans and a dinner roll the size of a fist. The people who eat at Rosie's Counter are not there for the ambiance. They are there because the food is real and the portions are honest, and nobody makes you feel like you are taking up too much space. Electricians on a half-hour break. A retired postal worker named Gerald who sits at the same stool every Tuesday. A nursing student who comes in at 2 p.m. when the lunch rush has cleared and nurses a cup of coffee over her textbook for 90 minutes and always tips $4 on a $6 order. This is the world Mara Kessel has worked in for 11 years. She started at Rosie's when she was 23, still carrying the particular uncertainty of someone who had taken the scenic route through her early 20s and was not yet sure where she was going. She had a degree in communications she had not used, and a plan she had not yet made. What she had was rent due on the 1st, and a job that started at 5:30 in the morning and ended at 2 in the afternoon, and paid, when tips were good, just enough. 11 years later, she is still there. She is 34 now. She wears her dark hair pulled back in a bun that comes loose by 10 o'clock and stays loose for the rest of the shift. She knows every regular's order by heart. Gerald takes his coffee black and his eggs over medium, and will talk about the Trailblazers for as long as anyone will listen. The nursing student, whose name is Priya, always wants the soup of the day before she decides whether to stay. A man named Dale, who delivers linens to 3 hotels downtown, eats the turkey plate every Thursday and never varies by a single item. Mara has a gift for remembering the details that matter to people and acting on them without being asked. It is not something she thinks about. It is just the way she moves through the world. On the morning the man in the gray hoodie came in, she had been on her feet since 5:15. The breakfast rush had been harder than usual. 3 tables at once, a cook who was running 15 minutes behind on a ticket, and a family in the corner booth with 2 children who had turned the sugar caddy upside down and were not remotely apologetic about it. She had handled all of it without raising her voice or visibly losing her patience, which was something she had learned to do the way other people learn to drive, through repetition and the gradual understanding that the road is always longer than you think. She was wiping down the counter when the man came in. He was not what she would have called remarkable if she had been asked to describe him later. Medium height, lean build, gray hoodie worn at the elbows with a small tear near the left cuff, dark jeans, sneakers that had walked a considerable number of miles in them. He wore a baseball cap pulled low and did not make eye contact when he came through the door, which was not unusual. Plenty of people came into Rosie's hoping not to be noticed, and Mara had learned to read the difference between someone who wanted to be left alone and someone who wanted to be seen but was too tired to ask. This man wanted to be left alone. But he was also, she noticed, a little lost. Not geographically. The other kind. She gave him 3 minutes with the menu before she came over. "Coffee while you decide?" He looked up. He had dark eyes and a quality of stillness that she did not know what to do with at first. Not unfriendly. Just contained. "Please," she poured it and left him. She did not hover. She did not run through the specials twice. She checked on a table near the window, refilled Gerald's cup without being asked, and was back at the counter by the time he set down the menu. "The turkey plate," he said, "if it's not too late for that." Never too late for the turkey plate. "You want the roll?" "Yes, good answer." He almost smiled. Not quite, but almost. She put the ticket in and moved on. What happened next was not dramatic. It was not the kind of thing that announces itself. It was a Tuesday morning in a diner in Portland. And it looked like every other Tuesday morning Mara had worked, and she would not have known it was different if she had not been paying attention. Which she was. Because paying attention was the job, not just to the food and the tickets and the coffee levels, to the people. He was on his 3rd cup when she noticed he had not touched the roll. He had eaten everything else, cleared the plate in the methodical way of someone who did not take food for granted, but the roll was sitting untouched at the edge of the plate, and she could see, from the way he was sitting, that he was not going to eat it. She also noticed, when she came to refill his cup, that his hands were not entirely steady. She did not say anything about it. She refilled the coffee. She set down a small plate with a second roll, fresh from the basket that had just come out of the oven, because Rosie's granddaughter had pulled another tray at 10:15, and they were warm, and they smelled like something that could fix a small portion of what was wrong with the world on any given morning. "On the house," she said, when he looked up. "The second ones are always better anyway." He looked at the roll. He looked at her. "Thank you," he said. And it was the way he said it, not politely, but actually, that made her remember it later. She nodded and moved on. She did not find out until 40 minutes after he left who he was. Gerald told her. He had been watching from his stool in the way that Gerald watched everything, with the patient attention of a man who had delivered mail through 30 years of Portland rain and had learned that the most interesting things tended to happen in the spaces between the obvious ones. "You know who that was?" he said. It was not a question. "Guy in the gray hoodie?" "Keanu Reeves." She looked at him. "Gerald, I'm telling you." She looked at the table where the man had been sitting. The plate was cleared. The coffee cup was empty. On the check, which she had not yet picked up, there was a line through the total and a note written in the margin. Then a number beneath it. She picked up the check. He had crossed out the 14.75 cents and written $14.75 next to it again, meaning he had paid the full price, not asked for a discount on the second roll. And beneath that, in clean handwriting that was unhurried and certain, "Thank you for the kindness." It was a harder morning than it looked. The tip was $300. Mara Kessel stood in the kitchen for a long time after that. Not because of the money. The money was real, and it mattered. She had $1,400 left on a credit card she had been carrying for 2 years. And $300 was a meaningful dent in that number, but the money was not the thing she kept coming back to. The thing she kept coming back to was the note. It was a harder morning than it looked. She thought about that sentence for the rest of her shift. She thought about it on the bus home. She thought about it that evening when she sat at her kitchen table with a cup of tea that had gone cold and her notebook open in front of her. The same notebook she had been keeping for 7 years and never shown to anyone. The one filled with observations about the people who came through Rosie's counter and the small ceremonies of ordinary life and the things she had been trying to figure out how to say since she was 23 and hadn't yet. She opened it to a new page. She started writing what she wrote that evening at her kitchen table in a neighborhood in Portland that was slowly becoming something it had not been, was not about Keanu Reeves. It was not a story about a famous person who had come into a diner and left a generous tip. It was about what it means to be kind to someone whose mourning you cannot see, about the specific difficulty of being gracious to a stranger when you yourself are running on 3 cups of coffee and a shift that started before dawn and a week that has asked more of you than you had available. About the quiet arithmetic of showing up. She wrote for 2 hours without stopping. 11 pages in the handwriting she had been developing since high school, small and precise, and occasionally veering into the margins when the sentence needed more room. When she stopped, she read it back. It was the best thing she had written in 7 years. She had been writing since college. Essays, mostly, personal essays about ordinary life. The kind that her professors had marked well but that she had never done anything with, because the window between writing something and sending it somewhere had always felt like a precipice she was not sure she was ready to cross. She had a folder on her laptop with 43 pieces in it. Some of them were good. A few of them were very good. None of them had ever been read by anyone outside of a classroom. The night after the man in the gray hoodie left $300 on a diner table in Portland, she opened that folder. She read for an hour. Then she opened a new browser tab. The submission guidelines for a literary journal she had been reading for 4 years. One of the good ones. The kind that published writers she admired and paid in something other than exposure, said they were accepting essays of up to 5,000 words in their winter reading period, which closed in 6 weeks. She picked the best piece from the folder. She revised it for 3 days. On a Thursday evening, after her shift, she sent it. The rejection came 6 weeks later. It was a kind rejection. The kind that says this one wasn't right for us, but we'd welcome more from this writer. And Mara read it twice, and then made herself a cup of tea that she actually drank while it was still warm, and sent the piece to a second journal. That one rejected it too. But the note from the editor said she had passed it to a colleague who ran a different publication. And had Mara heard of them? She had. Everyone in that corner of the literary world had. The piece ran 4 months later. The response was not immediate. It was not a lightning bolt. It was the slower, quieter version of things working out. Emails that arrived in 1s and 2s over the following weeks, from readers who said they had recognized something in what she wrote. An editor at a mid-sized publishing house who asked if she had more work like this. A fellowship she had not known to apply for, whose selection committee had seen the piece and reached out directly. Mara Kessel was still working at Rosie's counter on the morning she got the call about the fellowship. She had not told anyone she was applying for things, because telling people felt like tempting something she was not ready to tempt. She took the call in the alley behind the diner, next to the recycling bins, still in her apron. Because the shift had started at 5:15 and she had not been expecting anyone to call. She went back inside and finished the shift. She refilled Gerald's coffee and brought Priya her soup of the day, lentil, which was a good one, and cleared 4 tables and washed her hands twice, and did not tell anyone what had happened. She told her mother that evening. And her best friend, who had been listening to her talk about the writing for 7 years with the particular patience of someone who believes in a person even when that person does not quite believe in themselves yet. "I knew," her friend said. "I always knew." Mara still works at Rosie's counter 3 days a week. She says she is not ready to leave, which might be true, or might be the particular loyalty of someone who has spent 11 years learning to love a thing and is not sure yet what she is without it. She finished the book of essays in 11 months. It was acquired before she finished it, which was the strangest and most surreal phone call of her professional life. The title came from a line in the piece that started everything, the piece she wrote the night after the man in the gray hoodie left the note on the check. The line is, "It was a harder morning than it looked." She put it in the dedication too. No name. Just the line. There is a detail from that morning that Mara has never mentioned in any interview. It is not secret, exactly. She just does not talk about it because she is not sure how to explain it without it sounding like a thing it is not. When she brought the second roll to his table, she had almost not done it. She had been tired, the kitchen was backed up, and the coffee needed refilling at 2 other tables, and the family in the corner booth was signaling for the check. The second roll would have cost her 40 seconds. She did not strictly have. She did it anyway. Not because she knew who he was. Not because she was hoping for anything. Because it was the kind of morning, for him, and if she was honest, for her too. When a warm thing handed to you by someone who noticed you were having a harder morning than it looked is worth more than it costs. She did not know it would change everything. She just knew it was the right thing to do. I have been thinking about that 40-second decision for a long time now. About the gap between what it costs to be kind and what it returns, not always, not reliably, but sometimes in ways you cannot calculate in advance. I do not know if I would have brought the second roll. I would like to think I would, but honestly, at the end of a long shift, tired and behind on tickets, I am not entirely sure. Most of us are not sure. And maybe that is the thing worth sitting with. Not the outcome. Not the $300, or the note, or the fellowship, or the book. The 40 seconds before any of that existed. When it was just a woman in an apron and a man having a harder morning than it looked, and a choice about what to do next. This story is fictional, inspired by Keanu Reeves' well-known reputation for humility and genuine kindness. If something in this one stayed with you, drop a comment and tell me what you took from it. And if you know someone who could use a reminder that the small things matter, share it with them. That's the only reason to pass a story along. Subscribe if you want to be here for the next one. See you in the next one.